You know, ever since Microsoft and Sony both came out and did kind of their deep dives on their respective platforms, everybody's been talking up these differences in power between the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, despite the fact that most of us aren't in the know. Like, seriously, even me, like, I don't know anything. I'm just like everybody else. I haven't worked on a PS5, I haven't worked on an Xbox Series X, I don't know. You know, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a game designer, so I haven't done that kind of stuff. So why anybody else would take news from somebody else trying to claim one or the other without being one of those things is beyond me. But when it comes to these type of things, it's always best to take developers' words for it over anybody else's. And that's where this comes into play, because if you think about it, and I know there's a lot of misinformation out there, there's a bigger difference between the Xbox One X right now and the PS4 Pro in terms of percentages versus PS5 versus Xbox Series X. There's only a 16% difference between power between those two. They're both going to be doing 4K 60, both going to be doing ray tracing. You're not going to have a repeat, no matter how badly a lot of Xbox fans want this. There's not going to be a repeat of last generation where it was 1080p versus 720p. That's just not going to happen. You know, as people have 1080p TVs or 4K TVs, and you're outputting at native those signals, they're going to look virtually identical. So I think people are really kind of overestimating and reaching here, just because a lot of Xbox fans went through a lot of tough times this past generation with a severely underpowered console for the first, 3-4 years. And now they've had the power narrative for the last 3 years, and it really hasn't helped. I mean, it hasn't helped the Xbox in almost any way. It hasn't helped the Xbox sell more. It hasn't helped the Xbox really do much of anything. So I think that people have to kind of keep their perspective in check, and from that point of view, we'll just see where this all lands. But I did want to talk about this and link this article so you guys can check it out. According to this developer, and I quote, "Raw power difference between PS5 and Xbox Series X won't make that much of a difference for multi-platform games." So there is a raw power difference, but it's not going to be much of a big deal for multi-platform games. So what does that mean for next generation? Well, look at what we had this generation. On a base 1.8 T-flop PS4, games like God of War, Uncharted 4, Horizon Zero Dawn, Death Stranding look superior to the exclusives on the Xbox One X, despite there being a huge gulf in power with the Xbox One X. That's 6 T-flops versus 1.8 T-flops, but the base PS4 exclusives look better still. So you're going to see the developers that Sony have continue to shine, and you're going to see better looking games regardless, and then the multiplats are going to be the same. So a lot of things, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So this is what he says. He says, over the past few weeks, several developers have actually chimed in on the difference between both consoles. And this person was speaking about it, and he said that he believes that the power difference will mostly be noticeable for Xbox exclusives, as developers working on multi-platform titles will be bound to the lowest common denominator. It's likely that the power difference between the PS5 and the Xbox Series X will only result in higher resolutions and more stable frame rates. So not really much more different than what we're seeing right now on occasion, but since both are going to be doing and capable of 4K 60, maybe even less so. He says, "I think it will mostly matter to Xbox exclusive titles, which will be able to be programmed to get every drop of extra juice from the machine. It may also buy the new console a longer generation cycle. However, all developers building multi-plat titles are bound by the lowest spec targets. So the only advantage I can imagine there would be for stabler frame rates on higher end resolutions for the Xbox Series X, which, as I said, makes it redundant since they're both going to be doing 4K 60 on pretty much everything. And we've already kind of established that Microsoft's developers are doing stuff like Grounded and Crackdown and, Bleeding Edge, stuff that doesn't really require 12 T-flops. And then you have Sony, who are going to take full advantage, the next God of War, the next Spider-Man, all that kind of stuff. It's going to look fantastic. So I will link this. Let me know what you guys think, though. Sound off, rate, comment, subscribe. Have a fantastic day. Rack 'em up. Crapgamer out.